Welcome to the Explainer. So, you're thinking about bringing a manufacturing execution system, or MES, into your factory. Well, you gotta know this. The most critical stuff happens way before you ever sign a contract. So let's break down what really matters.
Okay, so picture this. You're ready to modernize. You reach out to an MES provider, and boom! What's the first thing that lands in your inbox? This long checklist asking about everything. Your layout, your people, your equipment. I mean, it can feel a bit like an interrogation, right?
But here's the secret. The thing you really need to get. That checklist, it's not just a questionnaire. It is absolutely a test. The vendor is trying to figure out your factory's maturity level to see if you are truly, genuinely prepared for this kind of massive change. Bottom line, they need to know if you're actually ready to unlock real, measurable value from their system.
Okay, so let's pull back that curtain. We're going to break down what they're really judging with that checklist, and maybe more importantly, how you can flip the script and use their test to your advantage. When you boil it all down, that checklist is designed to do three simple things. First, they need to get a real, honest look at what's happening on your factory floor right now. Second, they have to judge if this whole project is even feasible. Can it actually be done? And third, based on all that, they can start to sketch out a solution that fits you and, of course, figure out the budget.
And where do they start? Well, their assessment almost always begins with the most tangible thing you've got, the physical space of your factory. So yeah, they're absolutely going to ask for your detailed factory layout diagrams. But, and this is crucial, they'll also ask for recent, totally unfiltered photos of your shop floor, no staging.
And this right here, this highlights a super important distinction. The floor plan, that shows the theory. It's how things are supposed to look in a perfect world. But the photos, the photos showed the reality, the messy, unvarnished truth of how things actually run day to day.
So this is pretty much what's going through their minds when they look at those photos. They see crowded aisles, sure, but what they're really assessing is your level of management. They see disorganized materials and they're thinking hidden waste and inefficiency. Look, this isn't about judging how clean your factory is. It's about them understanding the real, practical limits of your space and figuring out what your true level of standardization is.
Okay, so once they have a handle on the physical space, their focus shifts to your most complex system of all, your people, and the processes that make everything run.
They're going to ask for your org chart, your team sizes, and yeah, even the average age of your workers. And that might seem like just some basic HR stuff, right? Wrong. It's actually one of the most powerful predictors of whether a project like this is going to succeed or totally fail.
See, they're not just counting heads. What they're really trying to do is evaluate your organization's ability to handle change. For instance, a higher average age might be a red flag for them that says, okay, we're going to need a lot more time and effort for training here. And that org chart, it tells them if you even have the right people on board, like a solid IT team or industrial engineers, to support this system for the long haul.
All right. Next up, they need to get inside the very logic of how you make stuff. Think of it as the blueprint for how you create value.
And one of the key things they're looking for is this major distinction. Are you still running on a traditional bundle flow where everything moves in these big, clunky batches that are super hard to track? Or have you already made the leap to a modern single-piece flow, which is all about transparency and is basically the perfect playground for an MES? I'm telling you, this one detail can totally change the entire design of the system they propose.
All right, let's get into the tech. They've looked at your space, they've looked at your people. Now, they need to dig into the digital and hardware foundation they'll be building on top of.
This is pretty much a full inventory check. They need a list of all the major software you're running, especially your ERP, and a detailed list of all your key production machines.
And this really gets to the core of why they're asking about your software. Is your current ERP data a solid foundation they can actually build on? Or is it what we'd call a historical burden, just a messy pile of unreliable information? Because let's be real, when it comes to data, it is always garbage in, garbage out.
And you know what? It's the exact same story with your equipment. If your machines are modern, they're networked, well then the strategy can be full-on automation, capturing data directly from the machines. But if your equipment is older, not really connected, then the first phase is going to have to lean on a more manual, hybrid approach. We're talking barcode scanners and people punching in data.
Okay, this brings us to the final piece of their puzzle. And honestly, it is without a doubt the single most important question they are going to ask you. So you really need to pay attention to this one. They aren't just asking what hurts.
What they're really asking you to do is define the value you expect to get. They're asking you to tell them what success looks like for this whole project, right from the get-go.
And your answer here, it sets the entire direction for everything that comes next. So is your number one problem that you can't find your work in progress, like it's just lost in a fog on the shop floor? Okay, then the solution is going to be all about tracking and transparency. Or maybe it's that quality issues are just creating chaos and tons of waste. Well, then the focus immediately shifts to collecting data at those really critical quality checkpoints. You see? Your problem is their design brief.
Okay, so we've pretty much decoded the vendor's secret checklist. So how do you make that shift? How do you go from just passively answering their questions to actively and strategically preparing yourself for success?
And this slide, this is the key takeaway for this whole explainer. Don't look at that checklist as a test you have to pass. Instead, see it as a roadmap for your own internal audit. Every single question they ask is a chance for you to look in the mirror, assess your own readiness, and take control of the conversation. That's how you make sure the final solution is actually built for your real needs.
Because think about it, when you understand what they're really asking, you stop being just a passive audience for a sales pitch. You become an active, informed partner in the process, ready to guide them toward the solution that's going to deliver the most value for you. So, that leaves us with one final question, and this one's for you. Is your factory just answering a vendor's questions, or are you ready to step up and define the value you demand? Because remember, the goal isn't to buy software. It's to solve a core business problem. And that preparation, it starts right now.